Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour on Saga 960. So I came across a really interesting young lady who has a Zoom advisory consultation group on a weekly or biweekly basis about a topic that may be a little bit controversial, but I was intrigued by it, wanted to find out a little bit about it. Kimberly Allison is her name. It's not her real name. It's a pseudonym we're going to use because she's got an occupation where she deals with people that she doesn't want to necessarily publicize. She's got an event marketing business that we're going to not talk a lot about either. But she has this support group for people that are interested in, what is it?
In polyamory.
Polyamory.
Yeah.
And what is, Kimberly, polyamory?
So some people would view polyamory as someone who is dating more than one person. So it's kind of the opposite of monogamy. So you would be having generally more than one partner. It could be one, it could be two. Those partners may, it could be two or three, and those partners may know each other, but even if they don't know each other, you are communicating with your partners about your relationships, and it's all generally not hidden. Like you would always speak openly about what and who you're seeing and dating. And that's the main thing. And generally, if you're polyamorous, you're very much like communicating all the time to your partner. So it's usually longer term relationships. It's not, and usually the relationships can be connected.
What do you mean the relationships are connected? So it's like a group thing?
Yeah, so it could be that two couples are dating, or it could be that one person is dating a couple and things like that.
How do two couples date?
Well, it could generally mean that depending if the people are bisexual, it could be something that they're doing together as a group, or it could be, they could be dating together or separately. So the partners can go off, and so the four of them date, but they don't all go on dates at the same time.
Okay. And so tell me about this group. This is a group to just expose people to the idea, or people that are interested and find out more about it?
Curious about polyamory chat. And that is basically, it's open to anyone who might be curious about the lifestyle. Also people who are already dating right now in an open way. And it's just basically sharing, especially during the pandemic, sharing how is dating going? Were you able to continue to be polyamorous, and what did that look like over the pandemic? I know for a lot of people, it basically meant if you had one primary partner, you weren't dating as much. You weren't going out and meeting new people or bringing someone new into your home, because with all the COVID restrictions and everything. But
right.
But that was something we spoke about, and how different it's going to be to go back out in the world now and start dating again.
Now, how did you get into polyamorous relationships?
I think for me, it had to do with my sexual orientation. Like being bisexual, it kind of opened me up to, I would be with a man and be monogamous, but then I would generally want also to date a woman. So I think that's how it first started for me. And then with the polyamory, it was more about realizing that you can connect at the same time it doesn't just have to be physical, it can be emotional as well. And I think that happened as I got older. So I realized I could be actually in a relationship with two people at the same time, or three or four. I think the most I've done is four. It gets the scheduling gets a little hard at that point. So you need to be careful with being able to manage your own time.
And so these are loving relationships. It's not just sexual. It's a loving relationship that you're having with more than one other person.
Yeah. Generally, yes. And you're sharing that experience with your partner, or it could be separate. Like you could be in an open marriage or open relationship where you're dating others, but we call it ethical non-monogamy, because you're sharing, you're honest and open about who you're dating. And generally it's one community. So you kind of end up overlapping, you meet people in the same community. It's not it's a big community in Toronto, but you kind of
really. So this is fascinating.
Yeah.
Give me a sense how big of a community is this a thing?
Is this a thing? Oh, absolutely. What I've learned is that as I was talking about through going to Burning Man events and things like that.
Okay, hold on. What are Burning Man events?
So Burning Man is an event that happens outside of Reno in Nevada. And it's a huge festival, but it's not really a festival. It's like a bunch of people coming together to create art and beauty and come together. It's,
Okay, so I've heard about these Burning Man festivals
yeah.
in the desert. What
Yes.
are you saying? These are
75,000 people as well. So it's like
a
really
celebration
big.
of polyamory?
Yeah, it's a celebration of like being really true to yourself. I noticed, I went in 2019, that was my first time. And I noticed that it was really about coming out there and just being true to yourself and being kind and sharing your gifts with like others. Yeah, it was very, very interesting. But what I also noticed is it's a large polyamorous community goes, a large open-minded like fetish community as well. So it's all those pieces were very open.
Oh, we've got a lot to unpack here. Bisexuality, open-minded fetish. You have to define some of these things for me because I'm a neophyte at these. I apologize. However, we're going to take a break for some messages and come back more with Kimberly Allison in just a minute. Stay with us, everybody. Fascinating conversation. Well, welcome back to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour on Saga 960. Tonight, we're chatting with Kimberly Allison about polyamory. She leads this support group that meets, is it weekly or bi-weekly? I've seen a bunch of your posts.
Them monthly right now.
Monthly, okay. And it's for people to understand a little bit more about polyamory and define us for us again what polyamory is, please.
So polyamory is when you're in a relationship with more than one person. It's generally longer term. So, and that all your partners, you might not all know about each other, but they know that you have other partners, and it's open. And
so some people would call what you're talking about cheating. And I guess the difference between that and polyamory is that people know about it.
Right. So in a monogamous relationship, definitely if you were to date someone else or want to have thoughts or even desires about someone else, generally that's thought of as cheating. I guess in a polyamorous and open lifestyle, it's more about understanding that we have those needs and it's not wrong and it's okay to act upon them as long as you're open and honest and you've communicated those.
So you told me that you came across this when you were in a monogamous relationship with a man and you had the desire to also be with a female. How did you tell him? How did he react?
It's interesting because I find in my experience that if a man knows that his girlfriend is maybe bisexual or is interested in another woman, like that's generally okay. Like they don't generally get upset. It really depends. In my situation, they generally are more excited to engage in that. They wouldn't always want you to do it on your own. But I think at first when you're starting, if you're sharing the experience, then it was okay. Like he was open. Yeah.
And is this something that you share or is this something that you go off and do on your own?
In the beginning, yeah, it was absolutely something that we shared the experiences. What I now in my polyamorous relationships, they are sometimes shared but I date other men as well. And I haven't dated a bisexual man. So that experience has not been shared. So if I'm dating another man, that's separate.
So you are bisexual and you've been with men and other females, but you have not been with a bisexual man.
Right.
So you've never been with two men.
Right. In that context. Yeah. Dating and in long-term relationships. Yes.
Okay. And so, explain to me bisexuality for a minute. So, I think that lots of us, have become aware of homosexuality, gay or lesbian. But bisexuality is not something that there's nearly as much knowledge about or talking about. And I think that lots of people will accept and understand that there may be a gay gene. And so therefore it's something that you're born with. Is bisexuality the same? Are you born with a desire to be with people of your own sex as well as people of another sex?
That's a really good question. I know for me and some of the women that I've met or men with bisexuality, like I know for me, it was when I was quite young and I just knew like you just have those little bit of feelings. And that was like before the age of 8 or 9. But yeah, so I think I knew like from a young age, once I started realizing what a crush could be or like could feel like. So I definitely did. I don't know if that's the same for everyone. I know in the gay community, it can be, bisexuality is kind of looked upon as like, you're gonna leave me for someone else. Like you'll always leave me for another man or woman. And I don't work, and that's hard because I find that that happens when I dated women. They always thought maybe I was gonna leave them for a man, that we weren't true, like really into the relationship, which was very sad because that's not the way it is, but it's that can be looked upon.
So do you think there's a bisexual gene, like there's potentially a gay gene?
Yeah, I think it goes with the same. Yeah, I think it's the same as if you're yeah, any when you people are transsexual and they kind of feel that at a young age, I think it's very similar.
So do you think there's a transsexual gene? And what's transsexual? Someone that just wants to dress?
That's cross-dresser actually. So
Okay, I'm sorry.
transsexual is more along trans woman or trans man. So someone who's, you know, if I was a woman and I had feelings that I
You
really
were
felt
really
like
a man.
more masculine, and I really felt like I didn't, you know, I wanted to have top surgery and I would remove, you know, my breasts, and so there's a lot that comes with being trans, but they really feel in their bodies that we're not meant to be the sex that they were born with. And that happens.
And
Yeah.
did you ever wonder if you were lesbian versus bisexual?
No, actually, yeah. I never knew if I was going to marry a woman or a man, but that was something I figured out a few years ago. But I thought, oh, it could go either way. Like I was open to it. But I realized that for me, it makes more sense for me, for my primary partner to be a man. Like that's what works better for me. But
Why?
everyone feels differently.
Why?
For me, just in my experience, I didn't find the gay women that I would date that really trusted me as a bisexual woman. Like, as I said, it's a weird trust issues thing that comes up. It could have just been the women that I was dating, but it happened a couple of times.
So have you been with gay women as well as bisexual women, or only gay women?
Both, yeah. But in my experiences with like just being with a woman, a lesbian woman, they really want to be monogamous, like in my experience. So that's why it didn't work out. Yeah.
Okay, so this is all very interesting, and and you say there's a large community in Toronto.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's actually the reason why I'm creating like the dating app that I'm creating, because we feel like there's a need in the community to have a new app that kind of represents the community and the honesty that we're trying to portray with meeting people in this type of community. Yeah, so that's why we're creating our new app at this time. Yeah, for a new dating app.
And what is this app?
So it's called Love and App right now, LUVN, and it is going to be a dating app for people who are curious about polyamory, as well as people who are already in the community and in the lifestyle, and who can find people with similar interests. And yes, so we're developing it right now, and it's been going on for about a year now in the design stages.
So according to Google, 10% of the population approximately is gay, homosexual.
Okay.
And 1% of the population is bisexual. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, I guess that would be, I don't know. I meet a lot more people, maybe because in my community, like I'm meeting more people who are open and maybe more LGBTQ like plus in my community, but I do find a lot of people I meet, women definitely are more curious or bisexual. So it's interesting that it's only 1%.
And supposedly 16% of people say they would like to be polyamorous, but only 6% are. So less than half of the people that want to be actually are.
Yes, now I've actually met people in my group, in my chats, that are in that situation where they're with a monogamous partner, but they're feeling that like I am bisexual, or I'm feeling kind of wanting to open up the relationship, but they don't know how. So we talked about that, like what would be some good ways to kind of have that conversation. And that was a part of the piece of those discussions, which was very interesting because I absolutely would want to help someone feel more confident with talking with their partner and communicating better.
And what are your suggestions in that regard? How does one do that?
Well, because we base, like what I've learned in the last 5 years being in the community is basing just everything on honesty and communicating openly. And I find when I was in monogamous relationships that you just don't, like you're passive and you worry too much about how that person might react, and then the relationship's going to be over. So, and I find that's a big thing that people worry about. So for me, like my advice was to absolutely have that conversation and open it up, like slowly. Like if you're feeling you're bisexual and you want to have an experience, maybe that's something you guys can share, and that might be the easiest way to kind of go about it at first, I would say, if you're dating a man. And that's in that situation, it was that way. But and just I said just sharing like your reasons. Like it's not that you don't care about your partner and you don't love your partner. It's just the experiences that you're kind of missing because there's a part of you that's just missing, and that's how I felt as well.
And so talking about it is the key, is what you're saying.
It's the open and honest communication that like I just noticed once I started doing that, it changed in my relationships and then also in like my life, just with everyone, like my family. Like I found being polyamorous was like the catalyst to like being a better person, like, which I know it's not for everybody, but for me, that was the experience I had. So that it really changed my life in a big way.
How did it change your life in a big way?
Just being more open, and then you are just happier with who you are and what you're presenting to the world because you're being more true to like who you are, and I think that makes you happier. So,
how did your parents react?
I have coming out. They know I'm bisexual now, and I think that was more for them. I don't know if it was a surprise, but they took it okay. Like they're very traditional, and so that I guess for me, like I still feel like I'm gonna be with a man as my primary partner. So I just kind of made that clear, and I think they were. Yeah, my father was a little bit more calm about it than my mom, but they seem to just. Yeah, I think they're still hoping I'm going to marry and have a traditional family. And as long as I have grandchildren for them, they'll be happy.
So
yeah.
How do you think about sexes, gender, and sexual orientation? Some people think of it as sort of a spectrum that's fluid. And genetics has something to do with it. Or other people think that, no, it's just choice and what you like. How do you think about it all?
That's a good question. Yeah, I think and sexual identity, like what I've seen for myself, it was something I knew from a young age, but what I've seen in some women that I've met and men, like it can be a transition too. It can be experience with one sex and then you decide at one point that you just want to have experience. So it could be very fluid, which I've noticed as well. So yes, that is a choice. Like you make a choice to decide to date now men and women, or you just switch from dating men and then you're dating women. So yeah, just in my life, it wasn't that way. Like I just kind of knew that it was both, like from a young age. But yeah, it's a hard question because I think it's different for everyone.
Was your first experience with a female or with a male?
It's a good question. I think it's a good one. I think, I guess, my first kiss was with a male. Yeah. But very soon after, I think I kissed a woman. It was at camp. Yeah. So it's kind of funny. It was kind of happened around the same year, I think.
The same year.
Yeah, the same year, I think, when I was just turning 13.
And so some people would think that, people that are polyamorous or bisexual just want a lot of sex, and it's just an excuse for them to get a lot of sex.
Yes, it is viewed sadly that way, but I think that we're like being greedy, like bisexual people, right? But it's not really about that. I
had a friend that used to say, might as well, because then you double your options.
You don't, yeah, right. That's the funny thing that people say. Absolutely. But I think in polyamory, it's not just about, I'm not also a sapiosexual, which means that like I connect with someone like with their brain, like that connection has to be there before
Sorry, what's that term?
Physical connection. It's called sapiosexual.
Sapiosexual.
Yeah. yeah, so you want to have that connection first. It's not just not physical. It's also for to the mind you're connecting to. So I think with polyamory, like that's a big piece. It's not just about, it's more about the longer term and like the connection. But of course it can be about having fun and enjoying that, that aspect of it as well. But in my experience,
so this is Pride Month,
right.
and
Yes.
we celebrate gay, lesbian, bisexual. Is polyamory part of this new, longer defined term? LGBTQ.
No,
whatever?
actually, polyamory is absolutely doesn't have to be that you're a lesbian or you're gay, like part of that umbrella.
So it's not part of Pride.
You can absolutely be polyamorous and be straight. Yeah, because you can open your relationship and the woman just dates other men and the man just dates other women, right? So it's not only, so it's not just for gay people. Yeah, in a sense, yeah.
Okay, but it's not part of the whole Pride. So that LGBTQ plus whatever, that doesn't include polyamory, correct?
No, not at this stage. No, it could, because it's not always a gay person who's engaging in polyamory or an open relationship. So
okay,
that's why, yeah. But they have added a few new things. They've added intersex and asexual, and I don't know if I could explain them all, but they've added non-binary as a part of it as well.
What is intersex? What is intersex?
I think that's just another word for like a transsexual. Yeah.
Okay.
From what I learned.
And there's another term you said there? Asexual?
Asexual is when
what's asexual?
When you're not you want to have connection with someone, but there's no physical. So you don't have any desire to be physical with your partner. But
okay. And non-binary, what's that?
That's when you're you're transitioning, or that's when like you're a trans woman or trans man, or you're feeling like you're not this gender you were born with. You're like on the non-binary. So you more androgynous, I guess that would be a word that we used to use. Like
David Bowie.
Right. Yeah. Someone, so a woman who might want to have more masculine, like,
okay. And then
want to change them. Yeah.
Then you used another term that was, I think, ethical fetishes.
Oh no, ethical. It was ethical non-monogamy, and then there was I don't know what ethical fetishes, but yeah, I did
said open fetishes or something like that was your term. What was the term?
Which is what I was trying to just to explain, like
you were talking about
at Burning Man.
At Burning Man.
At that festival, for example, you'd have somebody hanging like bondage, like right out in the open, like that would be somebody's camp, and they'd just be like wrapping someone in like rope. So that was very like an open environment for fetish and for different types of, there's so many different types of fetish, but that was one thing I noticed about Burning Man, where it was very like open, and it's a big part of like the community.
So this is interesting. I've heard about Burning Man in regards to the art.
Yes, it's beautiful art.
Music, party, and drug use, but I haven't heard about all of these open fetishes.
Yeah, they
and
actually have a
polyamorous
camp, which I didn't know about until I went. I was like, oh, there's like a whole camp that people just go, and they're all polyamorous, and so the community can just from all over the world can meet each other, like and learn from each other. And there's lots and lots of education that happens at Burning Man too, which I knew was a part of some festivals, but they make it like a huge part, like workshops all day for the whole 10 days.
About
not just polyamory, but anything. Like there's workshops on all different topics, fetish topics, polyamorous topics, topics about creating community and safe spaces. And it was really, really interesting. I love that they have like an education.
Sounds like there's a whole brave world out there that I know nothing about. We're chatting today with Kimberly Allison about polyamory and a bunch of other stuff. We're going to take a break for some messages. Stay with us for a fascinating and interesting conversation. Well, what a fascinating conversation we're having tonight with Kimberly Allison about polyamory, polyamorous relationships, and bisexuality, and a little bit of conversation about open fetish. It's kind of interesting, and Burning Man it would seem, Kimberly exposed you to a bunch of these different ideas. you've got this support group that meets monthly, and it really is there for people to talk about polyamory. And, I quoted a statistic that supposedly 16% of the people are interested in polyamorous relationships, but only 6% of the people are, with any kind of statistic you get over Google. Who knows whether it's anywhere close to right or not, but it's a number. What are some of the questions? What are some of the issues? What's some of the help that people that come to your support group want to know?
Yeah, I think something that came up a couple of times was about being with someone who's open or who is polyamorous, and then they're dating someone who's not interested in that. Like they're monogamous in the sense, or they just want to be with that partner. So they're open, they're okay with their partner maybe dating someone else, but they choose to only be with that partner. They don't go on other dates at all. And I found that was very interesting, and connected with that person too. And we kind of like, we're trying to figure out, like, she's like, how does that work in your life? And how do you, work out like those feelings of like jealousy and things like that? Because I think that's also a big piece of monogamous relationships, where like, you're just so jealous that your partner might be with someone else or thinking about someone else. And that's hard for people to get past. And I think that's why there's not a large group of people who are open or want to try it, because they're very afraid or scared to hurt their partner. So in this situation, she was working through it and trying to kind of, and one of the things that I had mentioned was even trying to talk with someone, like someone unbiased, like going even some kind of couples therapy, like is always good in these situations where you can just talk to someone about your feelings. If it's hard for you to do it just with your partner, like, but sometimes that helps. So that was something we spoke about. And also just, as long as you continued the conversation, like it's not like if your partner goes on a date and you're okay with it that day, but then you choose, like it's not working. And that happens in polyamorous, even when we are open. If it's not working or something about that person or something about the situation, like that open communication is ongoing. And that's what is also another thing that we speak about as well, how important that is. Like if you do have feelings and you're feeling not okay with something, like that, you're voicing those concerns, and that it's those, we have rules kind of in our non-monogamy, but what
are the rules? The rules are,
I mean, every relationship changes, but one of them could be like, you can go on dates, but like not with someone in our close circle. Like, some people don't want that, like the intermingling of close friends, like just we can
so
go
it's not like double dates,
an outer circle, which I think creates less drama in some senses. Yeah, so that's one piece. But yeah, just that ongoing, like if something is bothering you, like you're speaking about it, and those rules, like sometimes they can change, or they need to be firm, and like that needs to be communicated. So, and that's what I've noticed, that it's, as long as it's open and you're communicating and it's ongoing, and when you're feeling upset about something, that you're talking about it. So now, that's a lot of the stuff we talk about.
Polygamy is illegal in Canada.
It is. And in some states as well.
Why is polygamy illegal and polyamorous relationships okay?
It's a great question. We actually had a lawyer in our call, which is an ex-partner of mine in the call, where he is actually wanting to like create some new laws around that in policy. Because we think it should be okay, especially the rights of someone who you might be in a three-way like relationship, but then when one of the partners decides to leave, even though you're all living together, like they're not common law, like it's only two people can be common law, right, in Ontario, Canada. So that's a piece for sure. Why is it not legal? I'm not quite sure. I think there's maybe has not been enough, maybe, and I think we kind of base our societal values on like our Christian values, because that's how how it used to be, or on our religious values, and that's frowned upon, sadly. So I think that's a big part of why the policy hasn't changed in many places. But
I hear about, I've never been, but I hear about these sex clubs where people go to. Is that polyamory, or is that just sex, or something different?
Yeah, that's a little bit different. Like polyamorous relationships are general, just dating other people doesn't always mean that you're attending events or sex clubs. But in like a swinger lifestyle, like you would see that's more common, like even private events or going to sex clubs, I would say is more common.
So
But I think,
explain to me the difference between what you describe as a swinger lifestyle versus a polyamorous. Is the
from what
difference?
I've learned, what I've learned is it can be ongoing, but it's generally just for sexual acts. Like it's not, for polyamory, it would be more that you're in like a long, loving, connected relationship with the partner. And I find with swingers, it's just like, you might just meet someone that night and enjoy the night, or it could be ongoing, but it's not that you're dating the person separately. Like that's kind of the major difference, I think, with swinging. It's more for like the fun. And generally happens with like married couples. I have noticed. Yeah.
And you know, you talked a little bit about open fetishes. What are some of the open fetishes that you're aware of? Not asking if you've participated in any.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, just with some, I guess, in my community, what I've learned at different events and things like that. Yeah, there's absolutely, like, there's many different ones. You can go from the low scale, which is like whipping and spanking and those kind of things, to bondage. And then there's different ones that are more sensory. Some people use like electrical, like just like little tools that like create little charges. There's, which can go as far as like needle play, which I haven't seen live, but I've heard about.
What is needle play?
So that can be like using surgical steel like needles that go into the skin. Yeah, that's a type of fetish as well. So there's lots of different like sensory like types of fetish. Yeah.
So why would a whip be sexual? Domination.
Well, actually, people really do take out sex from fetish usually, especially what I know from events. It's usually like just the act of the whipping and the flogging and those kind of things, spanking. It's separate actually. So that type of situation usually doesn't involve sex. It's just, but it can't. But I mean, it doesn't. Usually, it's just the those acts are done separately. And yeah, especially at events in Toronto, because they're not, many events do not allow. It's just, yeah, they just allow the fetish part and the dancing.
What's the dancing?
Oh, there's usually DJs and there's two different like floors or areas. Yeah. So it's kept like in the same area, and especially different.
And so does one come to participate in the fetish or just to watch the fetish?
Oh, it's absolutely could be any of the above. So you can absolutely not participate. Yeah.
And these are all legal?
Yes. Yep.
And well advertised and promoted in some
absolutely.
cases.
Yeah. And in the Burning Man community, it's definitely.
I must be leading a very protected life, not being experienced and exposed to any of this.
I actually wasn't either until I kind of like found out about different like Burning Man art car events, and then that kind of like merged into different events once different things got promoted from the same people that were doing the Burning Man events. So yeah.
Some people would say that marriage and monogamy were a construct of the church or of religion, and were appropriate when we had farms and you had to have someone that was, someone that was, out mending the farm and someone back at the house taking care of all the kids and maybe milking the cows or something like that.
Right.
And it may not have existed in a tribal scenario where people were more of a community, and there may have been polyamory. Sorry, thank you. And it may not be something that should exist today. And that, also may have made sense if people lived until they were 30, but not if they live until they're 90 or 100. What do you think about that?
I actually don't have any problem with marriage. I actually do believe that maybe one day that's something that might happen in my life. But I think what people are thinking now is that even if you are in a loving marriage, that you could be open and enjoy, other experiences. So I think so I don't know. I think it's still something that can happen and can work as long as, and I have many friends who are monogamous and who love being monogamous. Like they are very happy in their marriages and love their partners and don't ever want to date anyone else or see anyone else. And I think,
And when you sit down with them or you go to a party with them and you tell them that you're out with several different people, how do they respond when they're in that loving, monogamous, exclusive relationship?
I have had mostly good, good situations, like where people were curious but not, upset or yeah. And I'm very grateful for that people, I think maybe it's my age group or just my friends that love me, but it has been very much like, especially in my community, the Burning Man community and stuff like that, people are much more open and it has definitely been okay. Like,
have you had someone react negatively, say that's abnormal, that's wrong, that's that's against God?
Not in that sense, but I think, and what was interesting was that it was a gay man that was actually the person who was not okay with the polyamory, just really didn't think wasn't interested in it and didn't understand like why I had to have, maybe two partners, so that was interesting to me. I never really got to sit down and have a conversation to understand the reason why he wasn't okay with it. But I think, it was just more so didn't understand it, and that can happen for sure. Like, I think that's why I like doing the chats, because it's like, maybe people are like curious, but they don't really know what it is, or they think that it's open relationships or having lots of partners and not being safe, and it's not really about that. It's, and I'm glad that people I've noticed are coming that have a little bit of experience and also like have a lot of experience, so we can keep that conversation going and have different viewpoints.
And so how do you think polyamory is different than an open relationship? There's less honesty in an open relationship?
No, I think, there should always be honesty and communication. I think when someone describes themselves as polyamorous, I think that's more when you're having those more connected, like longer term relationships, and you're very like, and sometimes those relationships are intertwined, like your partner might be dating that person with you, or you're in the same friends group. Like, it's just interesting. But I find with open relationship, that is more like in a like open marriage, where like you might be going to have another partner, but it's not like something longer term. I think, and also when we say ethical non-monogamy, usually that can relate to open relationships and polyamory. But yeah, there's definitely similarities. I think it's when you're polyamorous, you kind of take on like, it's like it's not just that you're seeing one person, or that it's something ongoing. And I guess a bigger part.
So if 16% of the people, and again, this is a percentage from Google, excuse me, so may or may not be right, but if 16% of the people want to explore polyamorous relationships, but only 6% actually do. So therefore 94% are not in polyamorous.
Surprises me actually, those numbers, but maybe.
Why, you think that it's a lot more?
Yeah, I think so. But I think,
are 94% of us missing something?
Maybe, I don't know. I think there are more people curious about it than actually exploring. Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
So is exclusivity, is monogamy missing out on something?
To be honest, not that I see, like not with my close friends who love being monogamous. Like, I think it really truly is for someone who has those feelings and like, or maybe wants to explore something with their partner, but not everybody does. Like, some people just really don't have those urges or feelings, and that's great too. Like, I don't frown upon someone being monogamous and enjoying their partner and their husband or wife. But I think, I don't know, I think for me, like it made sense with my lifestyle and with the people I was meeting. But
so the majority of people, if the majority of people are monogamous and want exclusive relationships and are intensely jealous if someone wants to be with, if their partner wants to be with someone else, is that jealousy just because of societal pressures, or because of religion, or is it because they've not been exposed to the idea? Like, if you think about there being a gay gene or a bisexual gene or a polyamorous gene, is there the opposite of that, a monogamous gene,
Right.
or is it just society and religion and custom?
It's a very good sociological question. I think that is a big question. Like, I think I don't know if they're missing the boat on something, but I feel like for me, like, I wasn't always feeling like I was monogamous for most of my life, like up until being in just before I was 25, I guess. So I think, or maybe a little later, but so I think it's like, it could be a transitional thing where like it's something that you're exploring, but I don't think that urge or that desire happens for everyone. And I don't think that's a bad thing or that it's, but I think societal constraints do have a big thing on that. Like, I know for me, before being a little older, like, you think a lot about what your family is going to think and a lot about how you're going to be viewed with your friends. And I didn't feel confident and comfortable, like, being open and honest, even with my own partners. So once I had that, more of that confidence, like, that's when I was able to, but I know that's not an urge for everyone, but I think it was for me. So yeah.
We're chatting tonight with Kimberly Allison about unconventional relationships, effectively what it is, because we've been talking about polyamory, we've been talking about bisexuality, we've been talking about homosexuality, we've been talking about fetishes, we've been talking about group sex. It's interesting. And it appears, I guess, that society is more open to at least talking about these things and in some places celebrating them, as with the example of pride, et cetera. We're going to take a break and come back with some concluding comments with Kimberly in just a minute. Stay with us. What a fascinating conversation we're having tonight with Kimberly Allison. It's not her real name, it's her pseudonym, because she doesn't want to use her real name, but she's been, incredibly frank and honest. And Kimberly, thank you so much for your openness. I really appreciate it. It's an interesting topic. And as we talked about it, it's something that, all the things that we've been talking about, whether they be bisexuality, homosexuality, polyamorous relationships, fetishes, et cetera, are something that people are at least becoming more aware of, if not understanding and accepting of, but at least becoming more aware of. And I think awareness and conversation, as you talked about, is good. Have you ever had a relationship where someone didn't want you to participate in polyamory and reacted negatively?
Yeah, I would say my first kind of trying it out was when I met a man and we connected, and then I also met a woman kind of around the same time. He was in Montreal and she was in Toronto, so I was able to spend a bit more time with her, and he would visit and things like that. And on one of the visits, like, I did want them to meet. I knew that they would probably get along as well, and we did all date when he would come to the city. Sometimes, like, we would have experiences together and go out together, like dancing and different things. And definitely, it came to a point where, yeah, the jealousy was just too much for him, like, because he was in Montreal and not in the city with us. It just was not going to be something that he was going to be okay with, because he just couldn't handle it. And I think it had a lot to do with maturity. Never had a relationship like that before. I hadn't either. It was a first for myself as well.
And if you were a close friend with this other female, it would have been okay. But the fact that you were having sex with her crossed the line for him.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And it was hard for him, which is okay. Like, I mean, not everyone can handle these types of situations. And I think he was a little bit younger than me. And I think it just, in his capacity, like, there's just too much jealousy there. And I think that can definitely be one of the reasons that things. Do
you regret that impact? Would you have wanted him to react differently? And if differently, what would you have suggested he do? Go to one of your support groups, or what?
Yeah, I mean, I know. I wish I had, like, the support or the community that I had back then. I didn't have it, or the knowledge that I have now. And yeah, I think because of how angry he was, like, we just chose to let it go. Like, we were just friends after that. Like, I stayed friends with her, and thankfully was able to stay friends with her, because he got pretty angry, and so it wasn't the best situation. But Yeah, I think absolutely. If we were in the same city and if we felt like it was going to be something more serious, yeah, absolutely having those conversations, like the three of us, like a very open conversation about our feelings and what's going on and how we care about each other. Because I think we all cared about each other very much. And I think it could have been something very, like it was something special, but I think if that anger and jealousy,
How would you feel?
it
How
would
would
have
you
been
have
more
felt
longer term.
if he and she got together?
Like outside of the three of us, because I
Yeah.
think that had actually never occurred. Yeah,
But if they did, would you
that
have
was
been jealous?
I I was actually, yeah, I was actually very much in love with him at the time. So I think, yeah, I think there's always like a little bit, what I learned when I experienced it and did it again a few years later, there's always going to be that jealousy. But what you have to understand is that it's not like an anger. It doesn't have to be an anger. It can just be, oh, like I would love to be there, but I can't, or like that's their date night and I'm gonna have my date night another night. And like that's kind of how I view it now. It's like that's okay. Like it's it takes time to like, yeah, to realize that the jealousy is not, doesn't have to be anger. It can be just jealousy. It's just an emotion that you feel and it doesn't have to be a bad emotion. It's just like you're missing out kind of thing. So that's how I view it.
Polyamorous relationships interracial?
Can they be?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. In my experience, it was at one time, I'm Jewish and I was dating a Muslim man, he's Pakistani and Indian, and then we were dating a Catholic woman who was just like Irish and like British. And I mean, we all come from very different backgrounds, but connected with each other. Very much. We connected. We were together almost about 6-7 months, and yeah, and that was great. And I think it very hard for some of our families, but we weren't fully honest about it at the time, sadly.
Well, this is absolutely fascinating. If people want to check out your support group, how do they do that?
Absolutely. We have a website. It's www.loveinapp.com. So it's just LUVN app.com, and everything is posted there, who we are, what we're about, and all of our events are posted on the website. So
loveinapp.com.
Yes.
So the one term that I had not heard before, but I think is appropriate for me, is this one about falling in love with the brain. What did you call that? The sapio?
Oh, sapiosexually. Sapiosexual. Yes.
Sapiosexual.
Yeah, it could be sapio. Yeah. So basically, and some people have demisexual too, which is like you have to be friends first. I think with me, it's the sapiosexual is like I just have to connect on more of a deeper level.
I agree. Thank you for Kimberly explaining to me
that's how you are too?
I'm sapiosexual. I have to understand people's brains and minds and what they're all about. That's what I love is enjoying meeting other people. And so it's been a real pleasure meeting you and if not completely understanding, at least being aware of some of the things that you're all about. And it's been a real pleasure. Thank you so much, Kimberly.
Thank you so much for having me.
Well, that's our show for tonight, the Brian Crombie Radio Hour on Saga 960. I come to you every Monday through Friday, 6 o'clock in the night. Early in the week, I usually have business or economics and healthcare and life sciences and planning. And later on the week, I have lifestyle and interesting people like Kimberly Allison. And so it's a real pleasure learning a little bit about the topic I didn't know much about before. And so thank you, Kimberly, for sharing it all with us. Good night, everybody. Have a great weekend.